What's up, everybody? Welcome to And Action, episode 43. Today is a very special day because we're going to be talking about a movie I'm very excited about. It's been highly anticipated from everybody on my end, and that is Johnny and Clyde, starring Megan Fox. We're excited to be talking about that today. But before we get into that, Mike, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good, Tommy. I don't know if you recognize this shirt, but this shirt was what I wore in Johnny and Clyde. And I believe I went up there for my day of filming in October of 2021. And here we are in May of 2023. Time flies. But I've been pretty busy, buddy. I've been doing my artwork. I've been rewriting some scripts and so forth, and just enjoying the sun here in Florida.
Well, I can see that you got your cutoff tee on like you like it. Ready for
Well,
that warm
this is
weather?
the Johnny and Clyde shirt, buddy. This
We
is
got our official Johnny and Clyde wardrobe. Mike has a great scene in this movie.
yeah.
He's opposite Sean Ringgold, who's a really one of my favorite actors to work with, just a terrific guy as well. So we're going to be getting into it. Last week we talked about The Florist. Had a great time talking about that, the web series that I produced a couple weeks back. But today this is a different animal altogether, Mike. This movie's got a really interesting story, a lot of zigs, a lot of zags. We're going to try our best to take you through them. Mike and I spoke last week. We feel as though some of these movies, like Johnny and Clyde is one of them, Vault, which we haven't even done an episode on yet, probably one of them. Some of these movies have a lot more story to tell than others. So we're going to see how we do and try and keep our format to that nice sweet spot of an hour, 15 minutes, which means if we don't get to all of the Johnny and Clyde talk, I don't want to stress myself out in fear as though I might have missed something or glossed over somebody. So this might be a two-part bad boy right here.
And also, people should know that they can watch this movie now. Not right now, but when they're over this podcast, or if they're watching in tape delay, you can pause us and go watch the movie and come back. It's on. I watched it through Amazon, and I believe through pretty much all, if not most, major streaming platforms. You can watch Johnny and Clyde 2023, Vanessa Angel, the aforementioned Megan Fox, Sean Ringgold, everybody. So, I mean, please do so.
Yeah, it's kind of unique, Mike. Usually this show is all about taking a trip down movie making memory lane. But today we get a chance to talk about a film that's current. It literally just came out on Friday of last week, which was May 5th.
Cinco de Mayo. Yeah.
So we hope that people had a nice margarita and enjoyed a little bit of Johnny and Clyde. And, if you read some of the reviews, you might need a couple margaritas just to get through it. But
we can get into that, Tommy. I mean, I don't know when you want to, but I mean, that's a topic as the filmmaker. How do you deal with the press, the media? And I'd be curious on your take on that. Do you want to handle that now or later on?
let's get into that later. Let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about the positive stuff, and then we'll get into some of the elbow drops that people are taking on me off the top rope.
Sure.
But this movie started really with it's kind of funny. I was on a movie called Damon's Revenge, and I was actually acting in the movie, and I was playing a character named Johnny. And the Johnny character was just this kind of crazed serial killer, but there was something likable about him, and he was almost like kind of a nice guy at times. And he had a girlfriend that he was secretly dating who also got involved in his plot of death and violence. So it was one of those things where these characters almost mentally started to cook. And in the movie Damon's Revenge, it was a very kind of a small part. It wasn't really a super fleshed out character. And I just started thinking, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if these star-crossed lovers, like a modern day Bonnie and Clyde, go on this adventure? So, like, a lot of times, a story can start with a character. Sometimes a story, or sometimes a screenplay will start with a concept, an idea. This was a little different. This started with Johnny and Clyde, the two characters, and we thought it would be cool if we'll make him Johnny and her Clyde, and we'll say that her last name is Clyde. Her. That's how we get the Clyde from the Johnny and the Clyde. So we kind of reverse the roles a little bit there. And then from there, Verdi Productions and Chad Verdi was looking for an edgy script and a kind of a dark film to make. Had just really built a relationship with Megan Fox's people and Megan Fox's management. And sure enough, we kind of started tailor making this script for, okay, we want to get this dark, edgy movie. We want a little bit of dark comedy in there, but we also want some great practical effects. And we took a little bit of a dark, demonic, almost horror genre twist on the story. And there you go. It, you know, there you go. It. That's a new
There you
one.
go. Wait, that's a new one.
There you go. It.
There you go. It Tommyism. Tommy does a Southern character that he hasn't shared on the show yet. I don't know if that's in the private stock, but I do find it entertaining. I find it very Dutch Mantel-esque.
Well, that's
okay.
because a lot of people don't know that you're a Virginia boy. You're a Virginian. So Mike is from here, there, and yon.
I'm from Northern Virginia. We always point that out.
You know, you love to say that. Let me just stop and pause here for a second. If this were the Civil War, you motherfuckers would have been fighting for the South. So don't try this North Virginia shit.
Well, okay. Northern Virginia pays all the taxes in that state, so that's why we want people to know that we're the ones pulling the weight up there.
Mike tries to run from his Southern heritage. You can tell.
So let's move forth. Let's
swig one for the working man, as our dear friend Steve Austin says. I'm very tired, guys. Today I need an energy drink before even lunchtime, which means things are getting crazy. Mike's gonna pop one too. We're gonna have a little drink with you. It was a busy week last week. We did all of our press, so I'm still kind of fighting back from that. We'll talk about that later. But let's get back to the origin. So myself and Nick Principe started writing the script. You've heard the name Nick Principe many times. He's a longtime collaborator on both sides of the camera. We've written stuff together. We've had a lot of fun together. And of course, he's been in front of my camera in almost every one of my movies. So we started cranking on the script and pretty quickly came up with a really great concept where we've got these two star-crossed lovers that are looking for their next mission together because they're serial killers, basically. And it's not just about killing for killing. You know, this is what they do in their mind. Like, this is their goal. Like, okay, on to the next stop, make a little money, knock over a gas station, get in the car, drive to another town, repeat the same thing. So they're kind of on this cross-country kill tour, and they're looking for that one last score that can put them into retirement. And they stumble upon a casino which has this secret hidden cash room where basically they think it's easy pickings, and it's run by the Megan Fox character, played, you know, of course, Alana is her name. And the one thing that they didn't anticipate, the one thing Johnny and Clyde didn't see coming, is this casino has a very unique security system, and that is in the form of a conjured up demonic spirit named Bakwas. But what we soon find out is that these demonic spirits can be a little unpredictable once you conjure them up. And, you know, sometimes they don't want to take sides. They just want to kill everybody. There's a lot going on in this one, and it's certainly all meant to be in good fun.
Bakwas was really interesting. And Nick Principe, just to give him the credit, he played, was it Chrome Skull in the Laid to Rest series of horror films? So Nick plays Butcher in Johnny and Clyde, and I'm not going to give away the whole thing, obviously, but I thought Nick had a really powerful, kind of emotional scene very late in the film where he kind of his character Butcher explains why he went on this adventure, even though in his heart of hearts he knew that they were probably going to have a tough time of it. And I did like Nick's acting chops in this one, and he's always been very helpful with you with stunt work, and I think he even did my stunt in the movie The Mick and the Trick. And Nick's overall a really great contributor.
Yeah, Nick is a multi-dimensional player. He can do a little bit of everything. He plays offense, he plays defense, you can put him on special teams. He's a very useful guy to have on a movie set, and we just had a blast working on this movie. And yeah, I think you're right, Nick. I think he's certainly known for his more, like, obviously action-packed roles or, you know, horror genre type roles. He's known for that kind of a thing. But the reality is he shows off some legitimate acting chops in this movie. And that was something that we talked about early on. You know, we knew that this movie was going to have a lot of laughs and a lot of ha-ha moments, but, you know, we wanted to have a couple moments grounded in some form of honesty, reality, whatever you want to call it. So Nick really was great to work with. And You never know. Nick and I might be linking up together on something real soon down the road. We'll
How
see.
tall? How tall is Nick? Is Nick 6'5", 6'6"?
Nick is about 6'7".
Wow.
Or not. Yeah, he's a big bastard.
Yeah.
We measured him at my house one time. It was late at night. There was a lot of. It was probably an alcohol fused argument over how tall he actually is. And then suddenly the tape measure came out, and I think it's closer to 6'6", but there was a little change over the 6'6", and I'm willing to give a man an extra inch in life. So if he wants to call himself 6'7", yes, it was a little bit over 6'6", and yes, when he puts his giant fucking shoes on, because he's a fucking giant, I'm sure he's 6'7". So let's give it to him.
He's somewhere around Hogan Lesnar height, so give him credit. He's a big man, but he's a heart of gold, a lovable giant. I mean, he's one of the few people that when I'm hanging out with him, he's towering over me. So I give him credit, and I know what it's like to be in those airplane seats and so forth. So I give Nick credit for navigating this difficult world we're in as big men.
Yeah, Nick's an incredible guy because it's funny. Like he has a pretty good way of, for being a huge dude, he has the way of like, this is probably a defense mechanism that big guys do over their life. But
Sure.
like he's talking to a shorter person, he doesn't like tower over them. Like he's always like trying to make himself smaller. You know what I mean? It's an interesting thing that I see that he does. Like it's almost like, again, it's this defense mechanism, but he's able to cram his big ass into some small places. Like I remember the first time we drove, I have a Corvette, and I remember we got in the Corvette, and I'm like, is this guy gonna fit in here?
Right.
And his head was literally right up against the fucking roof, but he got in there. So he's a nimble fella for having such a large size to him. But this isn't the goddamn Nick Principe show, so let's move on. Well, he'll get his day someday. So this one was produced by Chad Verdi, like I said, Paul Luba, Chad Verdi Jr., Michelle Verdi. We got a chance to make this movie right in downtown Providence, which is kind of like the home arena for what we do a lot of times. It's kind of funny, like this little area in downtown Providence. It was funny because I was having ghosts of movie past on the set of Johnny and Clyde, because we were literally like 2 blocks in one direction away from where we shot Mr. Birthday, and 2 blocks in another direction away from where we shot almost every scene in Vault. So it was really funny to just be walking around the downtown area making Johnny and Clyde and be like, oh man, wow, that's where we shot that scene. That's where we shot this scene. And it's kind of funny. There's an alley in the downtown area that I love so much. It's got so much texture to it. It's just kind of this dark, dank, nasty kind of alley that looks like it belongs in any crime drama or whatever. And I just said, fuck it, let's shoot there again. I shot a slightly different angle. Few will know of this alley, but if you watch Johnny and Clyde, I used the same dank, nasty little alley as I did in Vault when they're, the Theo Rossi and Don Johnson are putting all the money in the van with all the buddies. That's the same alley that we use. So kind of a fun example of like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You get this great location. Maybe you dress it a little differently. Maybe you shoot it from a slightly different angle. No one's going to say like, boy, I can't believe you used the same alley as you did in the last movie. So be resourceful is the lesson there. But let's go down the list here and just kind of chat about, the pre-production process. So I quickly found out that I had Megan Fox attached to this movie. Chad Verdi's really great at bringing in high-end talent. He's always really been able to just bring in some impressive names to a lot of these films, and it was no different in Johnny and Clyde when we had Megan Fox attached. And I remember we really tailor-made this script and this character to Megan. And there was a little bit of nerves that kind of came along with it. And I remember, I worked with Glenn Ciano on this movie. Glenn was the director of photography. He actually kind of, as they say, played a different position in this one, and ended up becoming the cinematographer because I really wanted him to be there. I, really trusted his creative vision and how he would support my creative vision. And, it's nice to know that you have somebody there that's, not to say that people are trying to sabotage you, but if you just met someone and you don't really know them, you might not know where their heart's at, where their head's at. when you've worked with someone for 15 years, you probably know that they're a good person and they're there to support you and they're in it to win it for the long haul. So it was really great to have someone like that by my side. And Glenn put in a ton of time and prep with me. And what we did was kind of unique. I'm not saying I invented this, but I don't know too many directors that do this. But I was really nervous about working with Megan Fox because she's, again,
Sure.
at the time coming into things, and to this day, I mean, when you want to talk just like sheer flat out star power, she was probably the biggest star that I had ever worked with. Um, and I just wanted to come correct. I didn't want to have anything left to chance. I didn't want to have a second of wasted time with Megan on set, me wasting time figuring out what the fuck I'm gonna do. Like that ain't gonna happen. So I knew I needed like a very methodical plan going into things. So what I did was I broke out a bunch of my action figures,
Oh yes, that's
and I
the King. Is that Elvis? Or is that
that's
Tarantino from Pulp Fiction
it's Tarantino from Pulp
with
Fiction.
the coffee? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So what I did was I started storyboarding, but I didn't storyboard with drawings because the reality is I didn't have enough time. I only had like 4 weeks of prep, so I couldn't really draw every single frame in the movie. However, I could get my little guys and I could position them and build sets, and I did, and I've got photos of this. It's pretty cool. And we built sets and we built little miniature mock-ups of all of our set pieces, and Glenn and I put these action figures exactly where we wanted them and lit it. And when I say lit it, I don't mean just like turn the lights on in the room. I mean, Glenn had a collection of little flashlights, and we even had colored gels and things like that. And we would light it in such a way where light is light, whether you're lighting a miniature or whether you're lighting something massive. Where you put the light source in terms of the direction of the light, and do you want it backlit? Do you want it front lit? Do you want it silhouetted? You can do the same shit with action figures and flashlights.
Right.
Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same, but you can start to use a football reference, draw up your playbook with flashlights and action figures on a big table, and that's what we did. And we kind of got carried away almost. I think we started off just saying, all right, we're just going to do this for a couple of the major scenes. And then once we started doing it, we learned how efficient it was, and we were like, wow, this is kind of fun. And it got us in a creative mindset. It got Glenn and I talking creatively together, even if it's like you want to talk about it like some team building exercise, where it's like, here's me and Glenn manipulating all these tiny little action figures and figuring out where the light's coming from, and me having my cell phone out with camera, kind of like slowly pushing in on these guys. And we had some fun together. We bonded together, and it was a really great experience. So one of these days, I'm going to put together sort of like a moving picture of all of the action figure shots that we took on our action figure storyboard and do like a side by side comparison with the actual movie itself. I think that would be pretty cool to see.
It would be really cool. And another thing that's good about working with Glenn is he's a true Rhode Islander. I mean, I think I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I believe even Woodhaven Productions was named after a street that Glenn grew up on, or some such thing, or his grandparents lived, or something like that. And he's really a guy that has a real true spirit for Rhode Island and Providence, I would say.
Yeah, actually, the story's actually Woodhaven is the fictitious town in the movie Incubus. And in Incubus, starring Robert Englund, which is Glenn's directorial debut, the police station they were the Woodhaven Police. So when we went on to make Woodhaven Media, that's kind of how we got that, because really that's where it all started for me. That movie Incubus was my very first film, and still to this day, like there's a lot of nostalgia for me walking around that old defunct police station that's not even there anymore. Literally been knocked down. I think it's a what is it? Dairy Queen? It's a Dairy Queen now. What's the place?
We've gone to the Dairy Queen. Yeah, that's Dairy Queen.
That's the place where they do this.
Yeah, I don't like that. I mean, I get the gimmick. I feel a little anxiety when the kid drops my ice
I
cream.
don't want them doing that either. I don't want you tipping my shit upside down.
It's like I'll take my chances if it's gonna,
Nothing. I got something else to say. Like, is it really a great thing to have your ice cream that fucking thick and iced up? Like, I like my ice cream with a little bit of mobility. I want mobility to my ice cream. I don't want it to be like a fucking cinder block. Anyway, DQ is not going to sponsor us. That's for damn sure. Then again, no one else will. Anyway,
Maybe this Waterloo grape sparkling water. It's actually quite tasty if you're trying to cut back on
Waterloo.
soda.
It's also
Yeah,
a terrific song by ABBA,
that's
and
true.
the very place where Napoleon was captured, I believe, at
Interesting.
Waterloo.
Oh, history and music all in one sentence. Very good.
Yeah, the Battle of Waterloo was a big disaster for good old Nap. I call him Nap because we're buddies.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about this movie some more. Let's go through the cast because man, this cast was terrific. Like I said, Chad Verdi always known for bringing in really great talent. So we had Megan Fox, and then we got a gentleman by the name of Tyson Ritter, who y'all are definitely familiar with his music. The All American Rejects, a really really hot band that just has so many hits. They're one of those bands that it's kind of funny when you look at their discography and you start to hear some of their songs, you're like, oh, they did that song? Oh, they
Right.
did that song? Oh, that's theirs too? Like just a lot of hits. And for, not to date myself, but for somebody who kind of came of age right around the turn of the century, that was a very big band, very important band. A lot of, my high school slash college era. I remember the All American Rejects just being really on fire. So cool to work with Tyson, and he's a very talented actor who it's kind of interesting. Sometimes, a lot of musicians will get into acting. We talked about it. I've worked with Sully Erna before, Godsmack. I think it's something that a lot of musicians kind of always wanted to do. And it's funny because when I first realized Tyson was in on the movie, I watched all of his music videos and I saw that even as a young guy, he was acting in all of his music videos and he was great. Like he was very funny in the music videos. If you go back and watch some of those All American Rejects videos, they're really well done, and you can tell that. Again, I'm guessing, and I've had some conversations with Tyson about this, but he really enjoyed the process, and you can tell by watching these videos. So very cool to work with him. He is super method. He has an accent in this film, and it was really cool because he didn't ditch the accent really like the whole time we were on set.
Right.
You really had to stay in it in order to keep it consistent, um, which was fun. And at times it was kind of like, you know, it was just great to see like that he was that in the zone and cared that much, like, again, I feel like sometimes people who get into acting and, they have a very successful run for many years, maybe they start, I don't want to say phoning it in, but it just becomes routine to them. A guy like Tyson, who kind of, his acting career really, aside from music videos, kind of just started in the last few years. This is kind of all new to him. It was cool to see that level of excitement. He still had that level of fire and passion for it and wanted to just do everything right. And it was really cool to see that.
Tommy, so I was reaching around for it because somewhere I have a All American Rejects CD sleeve that's been bouncing around my home here, and I've been trying to find the CD to put it all back together. I really didn't even realize that was the same guy until you said it, but I did notice in the end credits, Tyson Ritter was all over the soundtrack. I mean, I don't know if he did the whole thing or most of it, but I mean, I think he's a guy that you'll probably end up working with again. I hope you do. And there was a few people on this, Johnny and Clyde, that I thought might be really good connections for you in the future. Tyson Ritter, I think, is right up there. Megan Fox, I thought you and her worked well together. And but do you want to segue into some of the music that Tyson contributed? Was that originally was that stuff in his canon, or was that new stuff for this?
I was going to chat about it a little later. We were going to get into music, but let's just do it now. We're talking about Tyson. I don't want to. I must mention a gentleman by the name of Jason Suda, who he worked with Tyson on the music. But these two guys were just tremendous, and they added such a level of nostalgia and a pop culture feel to this movie. Remember, this movie's our love letter to horror movies and action movies of the 80s and early to mid 90s that we grew up on. So everything's big, everything's intensified. So along with that, the music's going to be big and intense and have that kind of those sprinkles of nostalgia, that kind of just something amazing about music. It's like that connection that we make. We can hear a certain synthesizer organ or a certain beat, and it just puts us back into a time. And I think that Tyson really nailed that in this. And those guys just had so much fun. I mean, right down to little things like there's a scene where there's a TV commercial playing in the background. And I remember Tyson calling me up and be like, "Hey, Tommy, check this out." And like he does the voice for like, "Hey, come on down to Rick's Auto Shop," and blah blah blah. And like I'm like listening, like, "Oh, that is Tyson." So it's funny. There's like even some Easter eggs beyond the music where like you'll hear Tyson and Jason kind of do their thing. But overall, I love the music. The majority of it was written for this for this movie. But there are a couple songs that I just absolutely love that he already had. And just some really great stuff. Tyson's a super talented guy, and he's always evolving, and he's a terrific painter. And if you follow him on Instagram, look him up on Instagram, and you'll see he's got some really great paintings, and that's something too that I think he started relatively in the last handful of years. So it's kind of cool. Like I've seen even his painting just like really evolve over the last couple of years since Johnny and Clyde. Really talented guy, and man, we had a lot of laughs on set. He's another one. Him and Nick Principe could be like two power forwards on a basketball team.
Oh yeah,
you
he's
don't
tall.
realize it. Yeah, Tyson's like probably another not nearly. He's not a 6'6" guy, but he's like a good 6'3".
Right.
So he's a big dude. So just really great people. Loved working with Tyson. Let's talk about Avin Jogia. Avin came in and played Johnny. Avin's a really talented guy. Just done so much work. You can IMDb him to see all of the amazing things he's been in. And just very talented and really cool. Just choices that he made, like wanting to dye his hair blonde to play the Johnny character, which was really cool. That was his idea. Avin's also a model and does a lot of modeling with a lot of high-end fashion. So it was really cool to see Avin get involved in the clothing. He was very adamant about what he wears, and I remember he was in Italy a couple weeks before we filmed, and I remember him talking with us and basically being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to some of these thrift shops in Italy and find some really cool stuff." You can imagine a thrift shop in Italy. We're talking, Gucci. We're talking,
Right.
all of the highest fashions, Versace, whatever you want to call it, and probably clothing designers that we've never even fucking heard of that are amazing. So it was really cool to see him like put that level of detail in, where like he cared about every garment that was on his body. So I was very excited about that, and he was just, the movie was fun loving and light, and the script was light, and again, you almost had to be in that mindset while making this movie, and he certainly was, and was just a joy to be around, a joy to direct. Again, sometimes actors give you a hard time when you give them a suggestion or when you ask them for a note, especially in this case. I mean, Avin's a big star. He's playing the title character Johnny in Johnny and Clyde. So it'd be easy for him if I asked him to do something to just kind of be like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure about that." Or, as Hulk Hogan would say, "That doesn't work."
Doesn't work for me, brother.
you know, he easily could have said that, and he never did. He always tried everything, and whether he might not have been sure about it or not, there was never any moment where he had any kind of attitude, and was just again a joy to work with, pleasure to be around, and man, we had a lot of laughs in downtown Providence.
I just looked up Tyson Ritter's Instagram and I saw some of his artwork, which is impressive. I'm hearing a little. I don't know if you got a video going on in the background, but I'm hearing a little bit of something there.
You know what it is? These motherfuckers are mowing the lawn like
Oh, the lawnmower man.
every fucking day. Like one of these days, I'm going to have like that movie Falling Down.
Yeah, Michael Douglas.
Like go across the street with like a fucking baseball bat and be like, "The grass looks pretty fucking mowed to me, don't you think?" I think it looks great. I can't take it anymore.
I don't. Have you ever?
It's almost like it's a double tandem. It's a double fucking, and I'll tell you why. These sons of bitches across the street from me, and I don't care if they watch this podcast because they've ruined so many goddamn shows. Not only does the guy run a landscaping company, so he's got all the toys,
Right.
but I think he's OCD.
Yeah.
Like very highly OCD to the point where like if one fucking solitary leaf is to circle and land on his lawn, this son of a bitch is out there with a fucking lawn, like a leaf blower, blowing the goddamn single leaf off of my lawn. I want to just walk over there and pick it up and move it. So nobody has to hear anything. And really, like, I mean this. This is going to sound, you're going to say, no fucking way. And I mean it. If I had 3 wishes from a genie lamp, one of the wishes would be for some brilliant scientist or maybe some form of AI, because we've got these robots doing everything for us now. Maybe somebody could just take some fucking time to invent a silenced leaf blower or a silenced fucking lawnmower. Like, silence the engine. There's got to be a fucking way. It's 2023. Silence that shit.
We can silence an AK-47 or a hand pistol. Why not?
Exactly. You can silence a fucking machine gun, but you can't silence a leaf blower.
Good
Get on
point.
that shit, please. I can't take it anymore. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to get all hot about it, but it's every day with these people.
Well, that's funny stuff, and it has seemed that a couple of times they chime in. Hey, buddy, I just have to do something for about 60 seconds. Do you want to take some of the viewer comments? We've got a backlog of comments, and I'll be right back.
I'm sorry. I've been so twisted over all of the leaf blowing. What's up, guys? I'm sorry. I've been very rude. It's the leaf blowing in my goddamn ears. But good morning, everyone. Kim, what's up? Ariana, how you doing? Charlie Short Film, Stephen E, what's up, brother? This is the Tom DiNucci action figure. Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? I like a little cup of coffee. Oh, wrong hand. How about a little cup of Java? Okay, that's enough. Charlie says, I'm going to use them next time. Great tip with the light. Never thought about it. Charlie, not only is it useful, but it's damn fun. Who doesn't like playing with action figures and having a reason to do it? Do you know the mower? Yeah, this is the mower man, and he's a crazy person. I think you're right, Ariana. They've seen my posts and they're like, "Oh, is it 11 a.m.? Get the big leaf blower." None of that little hand operated shit. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna keep on going while Mike is on a break here. But like I said, this was our love letter to throwback horror movies, which means lots of special effects that are practical. You might be asking, like, what's a practical special effect? Well, we all know about visual effects, CGI. Practical effects are effects that happen right in front of your face. So it's a lot like a magic trick, meaning there's usually like some kind of hidden pump or some kind of hidden device which fires blood or whatever out, actual physical liquid right in front of your face, which is always going to look better than visual effects. It's always going to be sharper when it's really happening in front of your face. So we had a gentleman by the name of Doug Sackman and his team, and we brought them in, and they were just phenomenal. I've worked with them before, and everything from designing the Bakwas costume, our demon, to really creating every single practical effect in the movie. They were just so instrumental. That's Doug, and he's just the man. And he's got a great squad that comes along with him. And Jade, awesome, just awesome people. I love working with them. And again, when you're making a horror movie that you're trying to have this throwback feel, you want to do things that people did in horror movies in the 80s, and practical effects are one of them. Welcome back, Mikey.
Thanks, buddy.
Another thing that I think people probably don't realize when they watch this movie is we shot this whole thing in 14 days, believe it or not, which is a crazy pace.
Yes.
And it was a weird one. This was a weird deal schedule-wise because we had an opportunity to get Megan in the movie, but the reality is we didn't have the rest of our cast. And Megan's character only interacts with a handful of characters, so we didn't need everybody. So to accommodate Megan's schedule, we actually shot her for about 4 days in the beginning of the shoot. Like I want to say, like, it was either end of August or beginning of September. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. I think it was September, but like the very beginning of September, we shot for 4 days, and then we shut down for like 6 weeks, and we didn't pick it back up until I want to say like mid-October, because I remember we had our wrap party on Halloween. So I think it was like second or third week in October we picked it up, and we shot the final 10 days. And that was challenging, man, because it's like, when you're making a film, it's all about kind of building up, and you'll hear veterans say, like, we'll get, the crew gets their sea legs, they get on their feet. it usually takes like 3 days for the crew, which is a team, right? Like any
Right.
other team, you got to play together a little bit, you know? Like the first game of the season sometimes can be a disaster, but by the middle of the season, oh wow, look at that. Everybody's clicking, everybody knows everybody's timing, they're playing and functioning as a team. Well, it's tough when you shoot for 4 days. You're starting to feel like you're clicking and playing like a team, and then you shut down for 6 weeks. And then
Start stop.
you come back in with most of the same players, but let's face it, due to scheduling, we had to replace some crew people. There were some different people at different positions. So now it's like you got a slightly different team, and now you got to find that groove all over again with a whole new set of actors. So that was very challenging. So that second 10-day shoot, in my opinion, was like in a lot of ways like way more challenging because of the start and stop. And I feel like having Megan on set, not that we phoned it in once Megan left, but I think again, when you have a star like Megan Fox on set, like you just know like everyone's got to be on point. We're not wasting any time doing anything. Our time is so valuable at this point. So again, I think this just happens. I'm not saying anyone's trying to sabotage anything, but once that star's not on set, it's kind of like, all right, we got that past us. Maybe the pace slows down a little bit without even realizing it. Despite your best efforts to keep everyone engaged.
Well, Tommy, there's something that we don't always think about in the film world or in anything with technical equipment, which I call it the human factor. And you just got to remember that at the end of the day, filmmaker or not, actor or not, production assistant or not, we're all human, and we can make, not to say mistakes, but like you said, just the human condition can kind of lead us to take the foot off the gas a little bit. But in defense of the production, Tommy, not that you need it, but I think
I need it.
I think my day of shooting was the first day of the comeback, if I'm not mistaken. And I was kind of like brought in halfway through that day because you guys were kind of doing an overnighter. So I think my call time was 6 or 8 p.m., something fairly late. And everybody was in a good spirit. To me, at least the day that I was there, people worked very efficiently but respectfully. I didn't see any clash of egos or anything. Granted, I was only there for a day, but from what I saw, things were running pretty well. And give yourself a bit of a break on this one, because remember, Tommy, this is October of 2021. We're just getting the coronavirus vaccines are just coming out, I think, and
Yeah.
people were still wondering, should we take this? When do we take this? Is blah blah blah. And as you put in the notes, not to put another wrinkle on this, but I guess I will. I think the day that I was there was the actual day that god awful Rust tragedy happened that killed the cinematographer, and the bullet hit the director. Not that has anything to do with this movie, but just the shadow of that. It was pretty bad for everybody making movies.
Mike, it wasn't. I don't think it was that day, and I'll tell you why. I think it had just happened, and I'll tell you why.
Right.
Because we were actually filming a shootout of all things when the Rust tragedy happened. That's actually a topic on my show, but why don't we get into it? Let's just have the conversation naturally flow. I think it was like, again, I think you worked on like the 14th or something like that, and I think the Rust thing happened on the 15th, and I only know these dates because sometimes I'm a weirdo when it comes to dates, and not in anything, but when I'm working, I have this odd ability to remember certain things. But long story short, I remember us being at a little motel, shooting a gun battle.
Right.
And lunch came, and everybody looked at their phones, and we all were like, "Oh my God!" Like, you almost have to read it twice. Like, Alec Baldwin killed somebody. Like, what? And it was an amazing shock to us. And you can imagine the uncomfortable feeling when we're on set with actual, hold on, let me rephrase that. We're on set shooting a gun battle when somebody just was actually killed filming a scene involving guns. So the first thing that we did was to make everyone feel a little more comfortable because, I mean, honestly, this could have been a situation where people felt very uncomfortable. And I wouldn't be surprised if you know, there might have been situations where it's like, hey, we're going to shut down for today out of respect for like what happened. Like it did feel weird to be filming our shootout on the
Yes.
same day that somebody was just killed with a gun. I'll be honest with you. But that's not, you know, it's obviously, it's not to say that we didn't do everything incredibly safe. Now, let me pause that conversation for a second and let everyone know what we did. We made an announcement and we said, hey, everyone, we know that you've all heard about this horrible tragedy that happened. We just want everyone to know so that you feel a little more safe, a little more comfortable. Every firearm on the set of Johnny and Clyde is a non-working prop airsoft gun. And even the airsoft capabilities have been disabled. So even if you put a little plastic pellet in this thing and press the trigger, it would not fire. So everybody knows there is not one live round on this movie set. There is not one actual firearm on this movie set. So we made that announcement. And although everybody knew that, we all
Right.
knew that, you know, everybody was told that, but it did make everyone feel a little comfortable just to like, hey, let's just say it in case you are even thinking, is this a possibility? No, that's not going to happen today. And I will say this, even though we had all fake weapons, we still took all the proper protocol, meaning the first AD takes the firearm, shows it to the grip, shows it to the key grip. The key grip looks at it, approves of it. Then the first AD shows it to the actors in the scene. They're allowed to handle it and take the magazine out and see that there's no bullets in there if they choose to. And then the first AD will even offer, if there's anybody else on set who would like to physically look at this weapon, if they feel uncomfortable, please come take a look. It's almost like in a magic show when you're like, folks, everybody, this is a dinosaur. Yes, you see, this is a dinosaur. Hold the dinosaur. It's kind of funny to use a dinosaur for this example, but it's just like in a magic trick when you're trying to establish honesty and rapport with your crew by being, look, guys, these are all fake. So that's a real thing, man, and it was intense. But you know, I'm glad nobody was hurt and everyone felt a little more comfortable on our set. But yeah, our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of that one. That was really just a terrible deal.
And just to clarify, it's not that Alec Baldwin purposely went in there to murder anyone or kill someone, as some of the press might have mislabeled that. It was an accident, but there was definitely some negligence involved, and we'll just let it go at that and let the courts figure it out. But what a thing to happen, Tommy. And it just goes to show that no matter how insular a film production wants to be with making their work, your work, Johnny and Clyde, you can't totally, especially with social media and cable TV and the computers, you can't go into a cave and forget about the outside world that exists, especially when some other production in New Mexico is having this type of situation. In some ways, for better or for worse, we're all connected.
Yeah, it's really weird when, you know, you're right. When you're on a movie set, you're often in that bubble where the outside world doesn't really happen, you know. Even if you're a big sports fan, you might miss a game, be like, oh, what? Oh God, that game was today. You know, like anything that's going on just kind of fades, you know, calls, your friends emailing you, whatever. Everything gets put on pause. But like when something like this happens, it's amazing to see how quickly it flies through set, you know, like the gossip line. And sometimes the story can even morph from like what you heard from one person at the beginning of the day. You get that telecrew person kind of a
Right.
thing, you know? Uh,
Yeah.
um, but let's get into a couple more of these actors that I got a chance to work with. There was so many great talent in this movie. I don't want to miss anyone. Johnny Russell played Clyde. A Johnny. What's cool about a Johnny is she's actually an amazing skater, and she brought her skateboard along. And I remember us talking about that and being like, "Oh man, we got to find a way to use this." There was nothing written in the movie with her skating, but there is a gas station scene where like, oh, it'd be cool if she was just like kind of skating around the parking lot here to, you know, create a little diversion. We had fun filming that scene, and she's very talented on that thing. I would probably bust my face open if I even attempted half of the stuff she was doing. Um, but you know, again, the fashions, her kind of Johnny's influence on what she wore was really cool to see. Again, she's a fashion model, so she just has an eye for what's going to look right and kind of what the vibe of this character was. And I gave both Avin and Ajani a lot of latitude with like creating their looks, because I felt as though, yes, I did have a vision for what this was going to be, but at the same time, like it's such a loud script. It's so out there that like if they didn't feel comfortable taking it to those levels, I mean, we probably weren't going to get what we wanted out of them. So it was really cool to work with Ajani. And this was only Ajani's, I want to say this was like her second or third film, so she hadn't done a ton of work, and you wouldn't know it by working with her. She really kind of took to everything. But at the same time, it was really cool to see her asking some questions about production and being like, oh, is that okay? That's what they mean when they say whatever, like a certain terminology, random obscure film terms that she was kind of learning as we go. It's kind of fun to see her interested in that. Um, and yeah, I mean, her and Avin had a great chemistry, and it really showed on screen. And they spent a lot of time rehearsing and making sure that everything's kind of clicking and vibing, and I think it really did. I think, again, people forget it, but like Johnny and Clyde's actually a twisted love story of sorts. As funny as that sounds, because you've got a demonic presence, you've got all this violence, but that's kind of what it is, at the end of the day. So that was a Johnny Russell. We got a chance to work with Bai Ling on this movie, who Bai Ling is a really tremendous actor who's done so many different things. She's been in so many action movies, and is a bit of a mega sensation in overseas. So it was really fun to work with her. She loved the gunplay. She's been in a lot of action movies. So it's funny to see this. She might weigh 100 pounds soaking wet, small woman, petite woman, handling an AK-47 like it's nobody's business, and like you can just tell she's done a lot of these films before. It was really cool to work with her. Good person, great energy, always upbeat. Robert Lasardo,
Oh
who
yeah.
Robert Lasardo is one of those guys who's just been in so many friggin' movies, and he's just super talented and dedicated, and the backstory that he created for his character, things that he played Candlestick, who's basically a reclusive arms dealer or gun fanatic, who's sort of trapped himself in his own reality. Uh, and Johnny and Clyde need some help to go on this casino heist, so they call their old buddies, and of course, Robert Lasardo's character Candlestick is one of them. And again, it's cool as a writer. You write these stories down. Sometimes, hey, it's only like the third draft, and we had to get this thing out, and the company is ready to shoot. Let's do this thing. You might not even think of some of the backstories that the actor is actually building and creating. So it was really fun to get his take on his character and who he was and where he came from. And sometimes, again, like that's what I love about working with actors. The writer, the director, you can create a concept for a character, but it's really not until the actor comes and sort of puts on the suit and embodies it, like that's when it really starts to happen. That's when the nuances really start to build. Like I was talking to William Forsythe yesterday on the phone about a movie that we hopefully, I hope we do it together. I can't give any details on this, but I was just chatting with him, and he had read the script that we're talking about, and he goes, Tommy, I know this guy. This guy's never walked by a mirror without taking a look in it. He loves what he sees when he looks in the mirror. And I'm like, oh man, like what a great line. He said, I'm sorry, this guy never passes a mirror without taking a look at it. Like I just fucking love that line. And you can picture it, like I love sentences that give me an immediate fucking visual. And I just pictured him like walking by a mirror and kind of, okay. Like just never passed the mirror he didn't like. I just love phrases like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I love when an actor, that's my roundabout way of saying, I love when an actor takes a character that you wrote and just like, boom, levels that shit up with their
Brings
natural
it
ability.
brings it to life. We should also mention that Bai Ling, I believe, was in the Star Wars, the 2000s era Star Wars movies. Wasn't she in at least one of those, maybe
I don't
two?
know, Mike, why don't you get the computer? Why don't you do some IMDb work for us,
Well,
bro?
I'm going by this computer, buddy, the brain.
Hey, that thing needs a reboot.
Yeah. When William Forsythe, who I've told you several times over the years, in the movie Weeds with Nick Nolte, did a great job. If
That
you
is
have,
so funny that you mentioned that movie Weeds, because again, I'll tell you off air, but there's a mutual friend of ours that we just had that conversation, and apparently that movie's very difficult to find on DVD or anywhere. It's not on any streaming platforms. But real quick, people, the movie Weeds, starring William Forsythe and Nick Nolte, is about a theater company all inside of a prison. So all these like tough prisoners get into theater and kind of changes their lives, which is kind of a wonderful notion, if you ask me.
And Foresight has a big role in that one. I've been telling you that one for decades, buddy. So let's get back to Johnny and Clyde.
Yeah, there's so many more actors to talk about, which is why you can see as we're approaching our 1 hour mark,
Yep.
we're like just getting into the cast. But let's talk about Armin Garrow, who
Oh yeah,
plays Sheriff Locke. You'll see Armin Garrow in this movie quite a bit. Armin Garrow is a great seasoned veteran actor. You'd see him on shows like The Sopranos. He played a character by the name of Coco in The Sopranos, which is there's a famous episode where Armin's character Coco goes a little too far with Tony Soprano's daughter and makes some very uncalled for remarks about her. And he takes the beating of a century at the hands of James Gandolfini, aka Tony Soprano. So, you hate to say that you're most remembered for a beating because Armin's done a lot more than that. But that's the one role that, like, I think most people are like, "Oh my God, that's the guy from The Sopranos." He was also in The Departed. Played it in a great scene with Leonardo DiCaprio. So yeah, Armin's done a ton of work. He was in the film that Mike and I co-wrote called The Manor. And again, Rhode Island guy, he's a former Rhode Island, he's an former East Providence police officer who kind of really all the way back to the 70s, as he was a police officer, was trying his hand at acting and was getting into theater. And, really like one of those guys who, again, probably this is a kind of a motivational thing for some actors out there. Armin's been in so many amazing things. He was directed by Martin Scorsese in the TV show Vinyl. And here's a guy who, and Armin, please forgive me if I'm wrong about this, but I want to say like he probably didn't start booking his more notable parts until he was well into his 40s.
Right.
Very much, I don't want to say late in the game because you're not ancient if you're in your 40s. Hell, I'm almost there myself. But my point is, I think a lot of people think actors, and it's like, well, if you didn't have a hit TV show by the age of 25, you're fucked. You should just quit right now.
Right.
And that's not really the case. And Armin's I like guys like Armin because it proves that, like, hey man, you can find your break, so to speak. I hate to use the word break because I don't believe in big breaks. I think life is a series of little breaks. But you can get your big break much later in life if you just kind of keep at it. So also Charles Harris, really terrific actor, played the character Baker, who is a bit of an explosives expert, who I love because he's like, it's funny that he's the explosives expert, the demolition guy, but he's also the most kind of rational out of everybody. It's kind of the guy who likes to blow shit up is the most logical guy and the most rational, which I guess that makes sense. You don't want to blow yourself up in a situation. So he was really fun to work with. Vanessa Angel, let's talk about Vanessa Angel. It's very important to kick off a movie with, something special and something that captures your attention. That opening scene is very critical in any film. And I think Vanessa Angel and Megan Fox sharing the screen, opening scene, kicking off the movie, man, like that was some exciting stuff for me to film and produce and to direct, I should say. But shooting that scene between those two was really special, and it was really great because again, kicks off the whole movie. Powerful scene. You've got these two very dynamic women playing opposite of each other. And Vanessa is kind of funny, but when I was a kid, so like going back to, probably like when I was maybe 12, 13 years old, the movie Kingpin was in heavy rotation for me and my friends. Like we watched that movie all the time because it's kind of funny. We were like, I'm going to let you in a little known Tommy DiNucci fact. I was a big bowler when I was a kid. Like when I was like ages 12 to probably 15, my friends and I were constantly bowling. So it's like Kingpin was a bowling movie.
Right.
It was also made by the Farley brothers, who still to this day are super talented. But at the time, I mean, like if you're around my age, if you know, you know, like 90s Farley Brothers was on a different level. It was
Right.
like they couldn't fucking miss in the 90s. Like
Something about Mary, Kingpin, all of these things. Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber, just one after the other were just hits, hits, hits. Um, so, you know, it was really cool that Vanessa, who is the leading lady in that movie, you know, it's so funny. I actually got to tell her this. There's this great scene. It's so funny. I mean, we used to howl when we were kids, but she's in a scene with Woody Harrelson and she beats him up and she kicks him in the basically kicks him in the nuts. And it's like boom, and she kicks him, and Woody Harrelson's crouched down. He goes, "Ugh, you got both of them." And like to this day, like my friends and I, if there's like a nutshot scenario, we'll say you got both of them. And it's just one of those things that like funny, these things that stick out in your head over the years and these funny lines of dialogue. And it was funny to just tell her, like, do you realize that like you were involved in a scene that my friends and I like still talk about to this day? And she was just really cool. And that was the first time we ever worked together, albeit, you know, brief. I think, you know, this whole scene was shot in a day, but we definitely connected, and it was cool because little did I know, a few months later we would be on set together again, working on the movie Merry Xmas, where I got a chance to be an actor in that movie. And Vanessa and I got a chance to really kind of get to know each other and hang out on set, and you know, really just became really good friends and still chat to this day. And we're excited to have Vanessa in town next weekend, or this weekend actually. She's coming to town for our Johnny and Clyde premiere, so we'll be welcoming her into Rhode Island this weekend. And we also, it's kind of funny, I can't believe I buried the lead on this one, but we made a movie together that's not even out yet. We shot this movie last June, July-ish, called Sins of a Preacher's Wife.
Okay.
The Lifetime movie.
Is she the preacher's wife?
She is, and I actually play Vanessa's
Sin?
sort of adopted son.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some sin involved. It's a great movie, and I'm excited about it. And it's kind of fun. We were just talking about him. That one's directed by Glenn Ciano, and I would imagine will be coming out sometime later down the road. You know, this summer, either this summer or in the fall. So, needless to say, Vanessa and I have had a chance to work quite a few times together since Johnny and Clyde. And I don't want to give it away. Spoiler alert: Vanessa doesn't make it out of this one alive. However, I wanted to bring that up because from a technical standpoint, we did this great effect. It's one of my favorite effects that I've done. And it's just a good old-fashioned practical headshot.
Right.
Shot right in the head by Megan Fox. Spoiler alert. And it's kind of fun because I'm going to demonstrate what she does. This is the bad version. But she gets shot. Now, there's a rig in the back of her head, which has like a little pouch of blood. There's a tube that leads down. It's hidden on the other side. The tube goes down. Doug Sackman is laying down on the floor, out of frame, and he's controlling the device with a little button that he can press. When he presses this button, a burst of air is going to run up that tube and fire out of the back of Vanessa's head, creating a nice mist of blood shooting out of the back of her head. But the key is it's got to be timed right so that you can imagine if it's like 3, 2, 1, if the actor doesn't throw their head back at the right time, it's going to look like shit because 3, 2, 1, you can't have the blood go, then the actor's head.
Right.
Like all happen at once because bullets travel so goddamn fast. So it was just perfect timing. It was like 3, 2, 1, boom. She throws her head back. And then she did this thing that was so fucking cool. She just like dropped her arms like, and like, I know it sounds so simple. I got to play the clip. I'm going to post it because I have a great BTS video that sounds so simple. But the way she just naturally like dropped her arms, it was so dead fish in the water. Like it was just very like, you know, I think when you watch a lot of these true crime shows, like it's hard to see someone's dead body because it's often like bodies are in really odd positions that are very uncomfortable to see when people die, especially if they're shot. You watch any of those like gangland slaying kind of videos, it's like people are always like in just weird. It's eerie. And what she did when she got shot was just eerie because you can almost see the life leave her body. So again, acting is one of these funny things. People think acting is just about the words that come out of your mouth. There's so much fucking more to it. And I think that again, Vanessa just couldn't have played that part any better. Couldn't have handled her sad demise any better. And we're very thankful for everything she did on set.
Some people might remember Vanessa Angel from the TV series on the USA Network of Weird Science. So she took over the role from the film version that Kelly LeBrock had, but Vanessa, I think, did a great job in the TV series. That was a lot of fun. It used to come on after Monday Night Raw for a couple of years, I believe.
That's right. Good old fashioned USA Network, man. Like the USA Network in the 90s had a lot of great programming. I was a big fan of that. Everything from I remember, I think USA had everything from Friday night fights. Like they had boxing, they had or maybe it was Tuesday night fights.
Tuesday night, yeah.
They had Tuesday night fights, which was boxing. Then they had La Femme Nikita, Pacific Blue. There were a lot of cool shows.
Duckman. Wasn't it
Duckman was fun?
What was the John Lovitz cartoon where he was the psychiatrist?
That was The Critic, but wasn't
that was fun.
I think that was on E. Wasn't it on E?
I thought it was USA, but I could be wrong.
Maybe.
Buddy.
We'll have to do a deep dive on that someday. Anyway, we digress. Let's get into a couple more of these actors, and then we'll wrap it up. So I got to talk about Brett Azar. Brett Azar and Sidney Jenkins. We'll talk about them as a package deal because they played Honey and Pot, which are basically Megan Fox's personal items, her personal assistants that wear very kind of interesting costumes and kind of do whatever it is Megan asks them to do. Sydney was terrific. Really kind of had this. It's kind of funny. She's supposed to be playing someone who doesn't speak English, and it's kind of funny. She just really embodied that perfectly. There's something about the way she looked. Everything was so kind of confused. She was always trying to understand, but being confident that she kind of knows what's going on. I can't explain it any better than that. She was just really in the moment for that character. And then Brett Azar, who Brett you might know from The Young Rock. There's a hit TV show on NBC called The Young Rock. Brett plays the Iron Sheik. And he's had a really great deal of success on that. I think it's run for 3 seasons now. So really proud of Brett. Brett was also the friggin' Terminator when they made, I forget which Terminator movie, but I think it was the 3rd one or the 4th one. Brett is literally the body double for the young Terminator. That means that he has the exact specs as 1984 Arnold, which
pretty impressive.
We both said the same thing. Pretty impressive stuff right there. So Brett's a man amongst men when it comes to muscularity and bodybuilding, and you're talking about probably a 6'2", 230, 240 pound solid muscle, maybe 2-3% body fat, if that.
He's a Rhode Island guy too. I looked at his profile. It said he went to the University of Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken.
He is a Rhode Island guy, and again, there's a lot of us that have had a lot of success here. Been able to, we got Armin Garrow in this movie, and just a lot of talent. And of course, last but not least, certainly not least, Sean Ringgold was in this film, and Sean's a guy that I worked with in Vault.
Yes,
and just again, we talk about this a lot, it's almost all these high-end professional actors, of course they're all great actors, that. But Sean's more than just a great actor. He's a great person, and he's great to be around, and his energy is just so contagious, and people just want to be a little bit happier. If this were a video game and you had a happiness meter, your happiness meter would go boop, 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 boop. It would just increase a little bit just by having Sean around. And Mike, yes, you got to work with Sean. So tell us, what was your experience like with Sean?
It was interesting. It was, we were kind of just putting the scene together rather quickly. We had a few minutes to talk things over. And I think Sean actually showed me some phone photos of his family. I want to say that he had a wife and a child, or a girlfriend and a child, or something was going on. And
Sean has a wife and 2 kids. Yep.
Yeah. So he was just really a personable guy. And really we just got comfortable together, and you know, another fellow big man of sorts. And Sean was a really nice guy. So I wish I had gotten more time to spend time with him after the shoot, but I think he was on to another scene, and I was more or less wrapped. But I did want to mention, Tommy, one fun thing about watching this movie through the Amazon device, or the Amazon, you know, on my TV. You could actually pause any scene you want, and there's bios of every actor that happens to be in that scene, whether it's Sean, myself, Megan Fox, the people you just mentioned. You can, Armin, everybody. It kind of goes, I think, to their IMDb profile. So it was fun for me as a kick to see my own stuff in there, but also everybody else's. And before this show, I did a lot of that. I looked up. That's how I knew that the guy went to URI and so forth, and Tyson Ritter's background and everything else. So just a little fun fact for people watching the movie at home on Amazon, or any movie or series on Amazon. You can check out your cast profiles as you're watching, or the second time you watch, or whatever.
Yeah, that's really cool that they have that, especially if you're a cinephile. If you really like to soak up all the information, it's nice that they provide that right there for you. So anyway, guys, we're going to start to wind this one down. And I've now officially decided, no, like bar none for sure, we're going to do a part 2 on Johnny and Clyde, because I'd love to just talk about like the actual production aspects. I think sometimes we get so worked up on telling the stories of like what it's like to work with this actor and what it's like to work with that actor. We don't get to really get into the production potential challenges, hurdles, some of the areas where we did a great job, some of the areas where we maybe struck out real hard. So I'd love to get into some of that more production aspect of things once we get going. And we'll break that off. Certainly not next week, but maybe sometime before the end of the summer, or maybe even sometime in the next few weeks while the movie's still kind of current. But basically, guys, I want you to know that you can get this movie right now. It's available on a million different platforms. I'm going to go through the list right now. It's on demand. If you have Verizon, you can definitely check it out. It's streaming on Apple TV. You can get it on the Redbox platform, YouTube platform, Amazon Prime, like Mike watched it, Google Play, Vudu, if you're a video game person, Xbox Network, it's out there, and probably a few other places. You know what I always do? If I, you know, it's kind of funny. A lot of people ask me, like, where do you watch Johnny and Clyde? And I was just like, in my mind, and I understand, like, they're just being nice, but I feel like saying, just Google watch Johnny and Clyde. You know, like anytime I'm looking for anything, I just, because there's so many platforms now, you don't know. Like, I'll never just like go to Netflix and be like, oh, is it on here? Anytime I'm looking for a movie, because I watch a ton of movies, because I'm always constantly trying to study and steal shots that put them in my movies. I'm often like, just how to watch blah blah blah. I just put watch in the movie, and I get the little.
To maybe defend those people, and I get what you're saying, Tommy, but you gotta remember, sometimes there's dead links, there's bootleg copies, or there's links that say, but they're not even real. You know what I mean? There's a whole, and you and I have both dealt with that, and it's sad that people, you know, use that opportunity for evil with the internet these days. But I think people might, what they might be asking, Tommy, is what's the best way for them to watch it that benefits you? Because if they want to support you,
then they should just come to my house, give me $20 cash, and we'll play the movie.
Well, beyond that, the Amazon.
Mike, I'm now offering private screenings at my home for $100 a session. You can come.
All right.
$100. Sit down with me. That includes one soft drink and one bucket of popcorn, and we can just sit down and you get live director commentary. It's a fun service that I'm offering.
That reminds me of the peanut butter and jelly story where a guy got into your house somehow and approached your DP looking for work. The peanut butter and jelly incident of, I believe, 2015. But then
I forgot about that one.
There was a gentleman. He was actually a friend of mine. He was an acting student of mine who somehow, through a turn of events that had nothing to do with me, was hired as like a mover for your house. And somehow, I think your mom actually said, your mom was kind of boasting about her son, the filmmaker, And this gentleman who is an aspiring actor got very excited to know that he was in the Tommy DiNucci of Rhode Island's house.
Okay.
And so then he somehow ended up on the porch, probably in the very seat that you're in now. And Sam Eilertson, your DP at the time for Almost Mercy or something, was sitting there. And the gentleman approached Sam kind of out of the blue and said something to the effect of, "Hey, I want to work with Tommy and you. I want to be the peanut butter to your jelly."
Oh, wow.
This was like a early story of
I
you
don't
and I.
remember that one. I tell you what, buddy.
You have to ask Marie because it's a classic.
You really do have a steel trap like memory. It's true. Elephants never forget.
Right.
Because I have no recollection of that. But I kind of do now that you said I'm going to be the peanut butter to your jelly, because that's a fucking weird thing to say to another person. Like if you, pretty sure like nowadays you probably get arrested for saying that you're going to be the peanut butter to someone's jelly. They'd be like, whoa, hey, where are you going to put your jelly? Stephen E's got a good one. Stephen E says, "Tell him you're allergic to peanut butter." Yeah. Very well.
I think your sister had a birthday a few weekends ago, so give her a shout out if that's accurate.
Mike, that was about 2 months ago, but
sometime this year.
Thank you very much. She is gonna have, next year she's gonna have another one if you want to wish her in advance. So yeah, guys, we're gonna wind it down. There's a lot of meat on the bone that we didn't get to. As they say, so much to unpack when it comes to Johnny and Clyde. We're going to do a more production-based Johnny and Clyde episode, tell you about the hilarious hijinks that ensued on set when all hell broke loose and when things were going damn good. We're going to encompass everything on the, I wouldn't say the next episode, but sometime down the road. The reality is I'm having a great Johnny and Clyde couple weeks. It's been fun. I did want to touch upon, look, some of the reviews that have come in on this movie have not been very nice. People are being very mean and saying very critical things about me. And yeah, you get upset. But listen, you got to have thick skin if you're in the movie business, if you do anything creative and put yourself out there. Listen, I know, it's challenging when you're writing articles from the comfort of your mother's basement. And, that's really all the excitement in life that you have, is to shit on somebody who actually goes out there and tries to do something with their life, while you simply sit there and be critical of others because you don't have the talent or ability or wherewithal to do anything aside from type away on your computer and take shots at others. So listen, I understand that. I ain't sour about it. So
not
really,
at all.
I appreciate everything that you have to say about my movies, and thank you for taking the time to watch them. So what I want people to know is you will not see "based on a true story" flash across the screen when you watch Johnny and Clyde. This is not real. This is a fantasy. This movie is designed to provide a level of escapism for people. It's designed for people for, 100 minutes or so. You can put this thing on and you can kind of just check out and you can kind of just enjoy the proverbial ride. You're going to laugh a little bit. You might look away a little bit at some jarring visuals, some violence. But overall, at the end of the day, it's just there for fun. So it's okay to laugh at Johnny and Clyde. It's okay to have a good time with it. But, again, I don't want people to watch this movie thinking they're about to watch, some great epic that's going to change their life. This is a pop song. This is a song that you just put on the radio and you bob your head to and you enjoy it. And I just hope that, if anything, it provides a little bit of time away from the monotony of regular life for people out there. And hey, even if you dislike the movie, well, hey, sometimes it feels good to throw some hate out in the world. So don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon. Bring it my way. Send your hate my way at Tom DiNucci if you didn't like the film. Feel free to have a conversation with me about it.
I think we might have a 3-parter, or 3 or 4 parts on Johnny and Clyde. Just to clarify, and I don't want to drag this out, but maybe we'll do this on the next episode on Johnny and Clyde. But I noticed, Tommy, you said that you felt like the hate or the criticism was at you personally. Do you feel that it's at you personally or for the film, or are those two so interconnected that it kind of blurs?
Well, when you're named in an article personally, it's pretty personal. So yeah, I would say it's personal at that point. You know,
Are they? I'm not sure of the exact review, but is it as you, the director, or you as a human being, or is it just kind of all blurred
the
up at this point?
director is a human being. So I mean, I think that people need to remember that sometimes. You know.
That's a good point. No, I hear you, buddy. Well, I think we can kind of compartmentalize that, and I think that might inspire a new topic, not just on Johnny and Clyde, but other projects of accepting criticism or when not to accept it or when to push back. I mean, there's videos of Robert Downey Jr. going straight at a reporter that was out of line. Quentin Tarantino doesn't put up with crazy questions sometimes, and I know when people review my book, Fight or Play Basketball, Tommy, sometimes they're very kind. Oftentimes they are, but sometimes they're not. And when people look at my beautiful artwork that's available on eBay, so sometimes they're very kind and sometimes they're not, Tommy. But at the end of the day, it's the man in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt once said. It's the man writing Fight or Play Basketball or directing Johnny and Clyde in your case. The critics have their job, but the critics oftentimes don't know what it's like to make a film or to write a book or to paint a painting. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
This is the last thing I'll say on that.
Sure, buddy.
Unfortunately, in this day and age, there's a lot of critics out there, and there's no filter, and anybody can be a critic with zero credibility.
Right.
And anybody can write some really harmful and hateful words on their blog or on their website or whatever. And really, at the end of the day, like, what is the credibility of these people? So that's all I'm going to say about it. We're going to move on. I'm going to take a couple of these comments here and see what's cracking.
Stephen E's got another good one.
Yes. Let's see. I got to catch up here. Ariana says, life is a series of little breaks.
Well, you're being quoted now, buddy.
I should put that on a shirt. You know what? That would be a pretty cool shirt. I'm not going to lie. Mike, when are we going to get our merch department rolling here? Grand action. We're going to get on that.
We need Ari or somebody to become our art developer.
Yes, we need some merch. Appreciate you for saying that, Ariana. Steven says, nice. Remember to link the movie in the description box at the podcast. That's a great idea. Yes, you scroll to the left, see the pictures, cool features, and $100 a session, cheaper than the movies. See that, Steven? Tell you what, maybe you can be like my agent, get some people to come over. I'll cut you in, work you in a little percentage there, a little finder's fee for getting people over at the Tom DiNucci personal porch movie theater, complete with soft drink and bucket of popcorn. Tell them you're allergic to peanut butter. That was funny stuff. Mike, throw her a late birthday party. I bet you Mike would enjoy that. This is the thing. If they can do better, then let them do what you do. Then, yeah, exactly.
Critics, yeah.
Critics, they just want to sit there and take their time. I mean, don't go Jack Nicholson shining on someone. Listen, today, between the leaf blowers and the critics, I better keep axes far out of my direction. People just need to be mad. I thought the whole movie was fun and it was a fun ride. The kind of movie that if I'm having a bad day, I'll just make me laugh. Well, I really appreciate that, Ariana. That's literally the entire point of the movie. So I appreciate that you got it. But some people, I don't know. I think like you said, it's easier and more fun to take a shot than it is to give someone praise in this day and age.
Sure.
And Steven says finder's fee. Yes, brother. Name your percentage. I'd go as high as 15% on this thing. Let's talk, negotiate. Start at 20. Maybe we'll work our way in between. I don't know. We need people at the Porch Theater. All right, guys. Next week, I've got an interesting topic for you. Next week, the topic is back to the well. And you're probably going to say, well, what is that all about? Even Mike, look at him. He's confused because I haven't.
No, I like the topic because I have a few thoughts on the topic, so I like the topic.
Well, I'll tell you what I think back to the well is, and Mike, you can chime in. So many times in my career, I have written something and I discarded it, and years went by, and it was like kind of just rusting away on some file in an old computer or maybe even my new computer, whatever. And then sometimes I'll dig it up and I'll need a script and I'll be like, oh, what was that fucking thing I wrote years ago? And I'll find it and I'll dust it off and I'll read it and I'll say, at the time I thought this was a piece of shit.
Right.
But it's actually not that fucking bad. So we go back to the well and we find an old concept or an old idea that we abandoned and we modernize it, we tweak it, we get it ready for 2023. So we're going to be talking all about, hey, maybe next week, maybe there's some things that you abandoned in the past that you should breathe some life back into, because maybe now timing is everything. Maybe now is the time for that item. Another part of going back to the well, because I'm prepping for a feature, I've been watching a lot of old movies, very obscure movies that nobody's probably seen in a long time. That's another well that I like to go back to, because I'll go back to that well and find shots, find music pieces, find just general tone and acting styles that, let's face it, people have forgotten about. There are so many fucking great movies that are essentially just dead. It's like
Right.
if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? No. If a movie is played and if a movie was produced 25, 30, even just a few years ago and nobody saw it, man, that thing could be ripe for the taking. So what I like to do nowadays is kind of just go back and watch all these obscure movies that, let's face it, man, people just don't have on their radar.
Yeah,
And
Weeds is one of them.
yeah, weeds is one of them. Exactly. So we're going to we're going to talk all about going back to the well and how we can find some inspiration for the future in the past.
It sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. We appreciate you riding with us this whole way. Long show today. $1.20.
We,
An
we
hour
always
20.
we always say it's going to be 45 minutes. It's always an hour and 20. Tommy's on Tom DiNucci YouTube channel where you can see this show. Please copy and share the URL. Andres has chimed in. He loves the Clint Eastwood flick. Stephen E is a big Police Academy fan. Stephen E's telling you to watch DC Cab with Mr. T. I'm on Mike Messier is my new YouTube channel with my Mike's Instant Movie Reviews. Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Paint with Owen Wilson I've reviewed recently. And, of course, One Man and a Camera Films is my stuff, and One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, my other stuff. Tommy, hang in there, brother. I know you're super busy these days. People don't realize that you've got like 3 or 4 plates spinning at any given time. So I think it's fun for you to be here and to do this show and give some people some insights. And this is real-time stuff. This is not a guy looking back at his career, when he's Sidney Lumet making movies at age 60 or whatever. This is Tommy's in live time. He's in the prime of his filmmaking career, and we're here to hear some of these stories.
I appreciate that, Mike, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening with us. Really, this week, this is one of the kind of most exciting parts of my week, and I look forward to it every Tuesday, coming on here and just shooting my shot and venting all this bullshit to you people. And I really appreciate that you listen to it, because it makes me feel good. And I feel like I took a big sigh of relief, a big breath when we're done with this. So thank you for that. And we'll see you next week when we go back to the well on episode 44 of And Action Filmmaking Podcast. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.